So here's the exercise that we have on the Amen Solution website. And if you're not a member, you totally should join, because I put the 30 years of resources that I use with my own patients here at the Amen Clinics into this website. So it's like $1 a day, and you get all these great tools, including the ant room, the Kill the Ants room. So whenever you feel sad, mad, nervous, or out of control, I want you to write down what you're thinking. So you write down the ant. This patient's going to be difficult. So when I wrote my first New York Times bestseller, Change Your Brain, Change Your Life, we started getting patients from all over the country, and then as the book got translated, from all over the world. And so all of a sudden, we went from sort of a local practice in Northern California to a national and then an international practice. And no one comes to see you from Panama if they're easy. If they're easy, they've been taken care of locally. So the level of difficulty of our patients here at the Amen Clinic went way up, and it made me nervous. And so this was one of the ants I had. This patient's going to be difficult. And I went, well, what kind of ant species is that? What type of cognitive distortion is that? It's fortune telling. I was predicting the worst. And as I talk back to it, so that's what you do, is you write out the thought, you identify what kind of thought it is, and then you talk back to it. And as I talk back to it, it's like, well, this could be a great experience. For those of you that have read anything that I've written, I have hundreds of stories in my books. I love the stories, and it's like this could be a great experience. It's so helped me. But that's the exercise. Whenever you feel sad, mad, nervous, or out of control, write down your automatic thoughts. Identify the type and then talk back to it. I remember once, I like telling this story, I wrote an article in 1989 in Parade magazine called How to Get Out of Your Own Way. And at the end of the article, we wrote, for more information, write us here. And we got 10,000 letters in our office. And I'm like, wow. And CNN heard about this great response that we had. And I'd never been on television before. They asked me to be on TV. And I'm like, well, how cool is that? And so they flew me to Los Angeles. I was on Sonia Friedman's show. She was a psychologist, a wonderful psychologist that I actually listened to and admired. And I got to be on her show, and I'm like, this is so fun. And I was in the green room waiting to go on when all of a sudden I had a panic attack. I couldn't catch my breath. My heart started to beat out of my chest, and I just wanted to leave. And I'm like, I need to just get out of here. And thankfully, I have a supervising voice going on in my head that starts laughing at me. And it's like, oh, ha, ha, you have patients that have this problem. What would you tell them to do? Because, I treated many patients with panic disorder. And I went, breathe. And so I slowed down my breathing, did diaphragmatic breathing or belly breathing, just like I'd taught so many of my patients to do. Immediately started to calm down. Don't leave. Because if I left, I'd have never gone near a television studio again. And as you might know, television has been very important to me. I love to do TV. I love my public television shows. I'm just finishing writing my new show for next year. Don't leave. Write down the automatic negative thoughts. And as I wrote them down, they made me laugh. Because the first thought I wrote down is, you're going to forget your name. The second thought was 2 million people, you're going to stutter. And the third thought was 2 million people are going to think you're an idiot. And so I then identified them. So you're going to forget your name is fortune telling. And then I talked back to it. And you have to have a little bit of an attitude when you talk back. Sort of like when you're a teenager talking back to your parents. I don't know if you were good at talking back to your parents, but I was excellent. And so I wrote, you're going to forget your name, fortune telling. And then I wrote, probably not. I've never forgotten my name. But if I do, I have my driver's license in my wallet. And by playing with the thought, you completely disarm it. And then the next thought is you're going to stutter, fortune telling. I was predicting the worst. And then I talked back to it. I said, probably not. I usually don't stutter. But if I do, then all the stutterers who are watching will have a doctor they can relate to. And then the final thought was 2 million people are going to think you're an idiot. And I wrote, mind reading. I have no idea what they're going to think. And then right next to it, I wrote this little rule I have. I teach my patients. So I just wrote the numbers 18-40-60, which stands for the 18-40-60 rule that says when you're 18, you worry about what everybody's thinking of you. When you're 40, you don't give a damn what anybody thinks about you. And when you're 60, you realize no one has been thinking about you at all. People spend their days worrying and thinking about themselves, not you. And I was able to calm myself down. I did fine on the television show. And it taught me a very important lesson. Don't believe every stupid thought that you have. Because if I would have believed those thoughts, I would have left. And the negative thoughts, the lies I was telling myself would have controlled me. There's another way to do this, and we also talk about this on the website. I have a good friend, Byron Katie. Some of you may know of her work. She wrote this just amazingly wonderful book called Loving What Is. And in it, she gives another way to kill the ants. And it's by asking these 4 questions. Is it true? Can I absolutely know that it's true? How do I feel when I have the thought? Who would I be without the thought? And then after you ask those questions, you then do a turnaround. You turn the thought to its opposite, and you ask yourself, is the opposite of the thought true or even truer than the original thought? So let me give you an example. A couple of years ago, my father-in-law died. And after the funeral, my daughter, Caitlin, who I was 19 at the time, we were having dinner, and she starts crying, and she said, the doctors killed Grandpa. And I looked at her, and I went, because I knew the situation with her grandfather. He was an alcoholic. He was a diabetic. He didn't take good care of his diabetes. And so I'm looking at Caitlin, and I'm going, well, let me teach you these 4 questions. The doctors killed Grandpa. Is it true? That's the first question. Is it true? Whenever you feel sad, mad, nervous, or out of control, write down the thought and go, is it true? Choose yes. And the second question is, can you absolutely know that it's true that the doctors killed your grandfather? He said, no, I can't. No. He said, my aunt told me that. Yeah, because her aunt was in grief when she told her that. I said, but how do you feel when you believe that thought? So, is it true? Can I absolutely know that it's true? How do you feel when you believe that thought? Sad, mad, I want revenge. So because of a comment her aunt made, all of a sudden my sweet 19-year-old wants revenge on the doctor that tried to save her grandfather's life. Fourth question. Who would you be or how would you feel if you didn't have the thought the doctors killed Grandpa? That I'd still be sad. I wouldn't be mad. And let's do a turnaround. The doctors killed Grandpa. What's the opposite of that? The doctors didn't kill Grandpa. What do you think is truer? that the doctors didn't kill Grandpa. And there's a very interesting part of the turnaround where you do the turnaround to the other person. And immediately she got it. And she said, Grandpa killed Grandpa. That's probably closer to that. So you can take a thought that will just tear you up inside, but when you question it, it takes away its power. I had a terrible time a couple of years ago. I had an employee that I just knew I needed to fire because they weren't doing a good job. And I told you I had a tendency to be anxious, and I wasn't sleeping. I had muscle tension in my neck. That's how I can tell I'm stressed. And it's like, I don't want to fire this person. And so I wrote that down. I don't want to fire this person. Is it true? Yes, it's true. I don't want to fire them. 2, can I absolutely know that it's true? I don't want to fire them. Of course it's not true. I do want to fire them. That's why I had the thought in the first place. How do I feel when I believe the thought? I don't want to fire them. I feel terrible. I feel sad. I'm not sleeping. My muscles are tense. And I feel like a bad boss. Who would I be without the thought? I don't want to fire this person. I'd be a good boss, because good bosses can fire people when they're not doing a good job. What we do here at the Amen Clinics is very important, and we only want the best people to serve you. So the turnaround was, I do want to fire the person, which was true. I mean, that was the truth of it. And the turnaround to the employee was, the employee, through their behavior, fired themselves. And I was able to fire them and actually help her move on to a better position for her. I miss my ex. I hear that a lot from people, as they go through a divorce and they feel really sad, and I miss my ex. And when you go through the steps, there are many things about your ex you don't miss. My son treats me badly all the time. When you do the questions and you do the turnaround, it's like, I treat my son badly a lot. So, in a very short time, I'm going to let you ask me some questions about this. But I just want to share with you on the Amen Solution community. We have a whole section called Kill the Ants. And in it is a lot of resources to help you overcome these negative thinking patterns. And this is just one of the exercises where whenever you feel sad, mad, nervous, or out of control, you type in the negative thought, like 2 million people think I'm an idiot. You type in the species, so this would be mind reading, and then you type in the response. So type in your talking back to the negative thought. And then you click here to eat the ant, and a cool little anteater comes out and will eat the ant. Initially, we had a big foot come down and stomp the ant. And one of my friends who was Buddhist said, this is not very Buddhist. And I always love feedback. And so we made it a much softer, gentler way to recycle the negative thought and turn the ant into protein. It's very fun. Again, I said, this technique has been found to be as effective as antidepressant medication. But you can't just hear me talk about it and then you think you can apply it in your head. You need to do this exercise 100 times on paper or in the community on the web tools that we gave you. There's also another exercise where we write down the 4 questions from my friend Byron Katie. There's an anteater song on the website you can listen to that somebody wrote from us, actually from New Zealand. There's an ant poem. And in our Brain Gym, there's actually a number of games you can play to learn how to correct the automatic negative thoughts going through your head so that you can feel better, happier, more relaxed. Do not believe every negative thought you have.